My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn with the Oklahoma State University Library. Today is Thursday, August 23rd, and I am in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, interviewing Terry Neese. This interview is being conducted as part of the inductees of the Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame Oral History Project. Terry Neese was inducted into the Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame in 2007. She is a public policy strategist and award-winning small business owner. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
All right. Well, let's get started by learning a little more about you. Could you start with where you grew up and give a little background on your early life?
I grew up in Oklahoma in a very small farming community called Cookie Town, Oklahoma. Population about, at the time when I was growing up, there were around 10 to 15 people that lived in Cookie Town, Oklahoma. Essentially 2 little gas stations and a church. And so my early life was spent on a farm and learning what I think is real, true entrepreneurship.
Okay. Tell me about the schools you attended growing up.
You know, I'm a product of a consolidated school system. I first started the school at Union Valley School, which was just a short ways from Cookie Town, about 5 miles from Cookie Town. In the 4th grade, actually let me digress for a moment. I started 1st grade and was only in 1st grade for a couple of weeks and was promoted to the 3rd grade. And I might have some things to say about that a little bit later because I'm not sure that was a good thing. I think I missed a lot of knowledge and just camaraderie with 1st graders and 2nd graders and then jump to 3rd. It was a big jump. So it was somewhat difficult for me later years in school. There was a school consolidation of Ranelette High School and the school system at Ranelette, the school system in Duvall, Oklahoma, and the school system in Union Valley. And so the consolidation became Big Pasture. So this was in the southwestern part of Oklahoma, real close to the Red River. So I ended up graduating, though, from Burnett High School, just right across the Texas state line, but attended school at Big Pasture High School through my sophomore year.
Were there a lot of students in your different grades? How big were the schools?
There were 4 people in my 1st grade class, and so moving to the 3rd grade class, there were, I think, still 4 or 5 people in the 3rd grade class. When we consolidated, there were probably 20, 25 people in my class. When I left Big Pasture High School and went to Burnett High School, I went from 30 people to 250, 300 people. And that was a real shock to me. My grades went in the tank. It was just a terrible adjustment for me. I was 13, 14 years old, so it was really a tough adjustment for me. But so much of my fabric is built around the classes for me in my high school years and grade school years in Oklahoma and in North Texas.
Okay. When you were growing up, what were some of your favorite subjects?
I loved sports. Sports was really my thing. I loved basketball. I could stand for hours at the goal at home or in the auditorium and shoot basketballs. Or the gymnasium. Really loved basketball. I loved social studies, and I loved history. I loved geography. So kind of out of the norm, I suppose. When I went to college, I loved business classes and anything and everything about business. So, and that really started fairly young, I'd say in high school. Really learning about entrepreneurship and small business, and then that carried through in my college days.
Now growing up outside of, your school activities, what did you like to do for fun when you were at home?
I loved horses, and riding horses and spending time with my horses. So it was either horses or basketball, one of the two. I also loved the land. I loved to be in the fields with my dad. We grew primarily wheat and cotton, and so being on the tractor and plowing the fields and just loving the land and the wheat crops, helping harvest wheat. I didn't like cotton, harvesting cotton that well or picking cotton that well, but I really enjoyed the wheat, and I loved being in the fields and feeling the weather on my face, the dirt from the fields on my face, and just spending time with Dad.
Did you have a set chore on the farm that you had to do growing up?
Yes, I did. It was chores. Some of the chores I did not like, for example, cleaning out chicken houses, gathering eggs when there were perhaps snakes in the chicken house. That I hated. Feeding the cows, feeding the horses, just taking care of livestock around the farm primarily. I did not like to do household chores. I wanted to be outside in the fields or doing chores and spending time with Dad.
Okay. Now when you're growing up, and you're sitting there on the farm and you're thinking about your life, what did you want to be? What did you picture yourself doing when you were older?
Oh my gosh, I don't think I gave it a lot of thought. I thought that I would probably continue to be on the farm. I thought that I would marry someone that would probably be in farming and ranching, and that I would spend most of my time in Southwest Oklahoma continuing to work on the land and be a part of our great soil in this state. I did think some about business and what role I might play in the business world, but it seemed a long way from Cookie Town to developing a business, because my circle was Cookie Town. I mean, that was town, and we're talking 5-6 people. Periodically, we got to go to Walters, Oklahoma, or Temple, Oklahoma, which also is not a large populated town. So being in business and being in the business world was a dream out there, but I'm not sure I ever thought I would make that dream come true.
Now, as you're growing up, who are some of the people you looked up to? Who were some of your role models?
I would have to say my dad, because of the entrepreneurial spirit it takes to be a farmer and a rancher. My mother, because she was the true stay-at-home mom that made sure the household ran appropriately. And she was always there, and she was terrific, wonderful role model. As I grew up, I had a science teacher that was very much a mentor to me and was real special, and a math teacher, although math was not my best subject. He was certainly a great mentor to me and really encouraged me to become involved more in business, and actually encouraged me to get a job. My first job was in a clothing store as a sales clerk, and I worked my junior and senior years in high school and was involved with DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America. And it was really my science teacher and my math teacher that kept encouraging me and pushing me toward getting involved in the business world and get out there and get a job and go to school half-time and work half-time. And that was really a brilliant stroke of luck for me.
They helped lay the groundwork.
They did. They laid the groundwork for me and made me see that my dream and my vision could could actually happen. And that's really phenomenal.
Now, we spoke a little bit about your mother and your father. Tell me about your family. Do you have any siblings? If you're married, tell me about your husband, your children.
I do have siblings. I have 2 sisters. Both are teachers. Unfortunately, I lost my middle sister a few years ago, but she was a teacher, a great teacher, and my older sister is a teacher in Dallas and doing God's work. I think teachers are doing God's work. I am married, Earl Neese. He is a Western author and a CPA and the light of my life. He jokingly says that he taught me everything I know. Great guy, and has been just a phenomenal supporter of mine. Always pushing me, always encouraging me, always right there with me in all the decisions that I ever made in business or life, and I appreciate and love him so much. I'm trying not to get a little emotional here. I have a daughter who is also the light of my life, and interestingly enough, I don't think, ever thought she would be involved in the business world to a great extent, certainly not own a company. But after I founded Terry Neese Personnel Services and built that business over the last 30 years, I encouraged her to come into the business and continue the legacy of the business. And she has done that. She's now been in the business for about 8 or 9 years and is doing, frankly, I think, a much better job of operating the business than I did. So it's been a real pleasure to see her come in and take over the business and continue to build it and take it to the next level.
Okay. It sounds like family plays, even when you were younger till now, a really big, important role in your life. If you could touch upon that for me, please.
Yeah, I think years ago we really took care of our family. Oftentimes, Grandma and Grandpa lived with Mom and Dad and the children, and we had aunts and uncles around, we had cousins around, we all lived within a few miles of each other, so it was a lot of family time. And today, I think that's not the case so much. And I think that's sad because family is so important and so critical to you. You don't realize it when you're young, but as you get a little older, you begin to realize how important that history is, how important the legacy is, and what it means to you, what it means to your children, and what it means to your grandchildren. Today, there are few aunts and uncles that are close by. There are few grandmothers and grandfathers that are close by. An example is my mother continued to live in the southwest part of Oklahoma and the northern part of Texas all of her life. She's now 85 years old. And about 4 years ago, I decided she didn't need to be down there alone by herself. So I moved her to Oklahoma City, just a mile from my home, so that I could spend more time with her and quality time with her. Our agreement was she agreed to move here and leave 81 years behind of friends and more friends and her church friends if I would agree to come by and have dinner with her every night that I possibly could. And so we cut that deal. And I'm really proud and pleased that she's within a couple of minutes of me in my home, and making sure that we can go over and spend time with her, that my daughter can spend time with her, that my grandchildren can spend time with her, and really develop that relationship and love that relationship.
Now, I understand you attended college at the University of Oklahoma. Can you describe your collegiate experience, some of the things you did, what you studied, how that impacted you?
in terms of Oklahoma universities, interesting. My major was secretarial science because and this was in the late 60s, and so I assumed that I would be a secretary for the rest of my life, or administrative assistant. So I made sure that I had the necessary skills to be a good leader in the business, but as a secretary or administrative assistant. I loved typing on the old typewriters. I loved shorthand. I literally lived and breathed the business aspect of secretarial science and the typing and the shorthand. Interestingly enough, I married, had my daughter, and worked for a couple of companies in Norman, Oklahoma as a secretary, and quickly became an office manager in these companies and progressed through my career in that light. I never thought about owning my own business. It just happened. And it happened because the businesses I was working for did not manage their companies so they were profitable. And therefore, these businesses went out of business. And I all of a sudden thought, I think I can own and operate a business and make it profitable. And so opened my own companies, started opening my own companies in the mid-70s, early 70s actually.
Now, you went into a particular type of business. Well, first, it's kind of, back then, women were not generally thought of as the business type owner. So tell me about why you decided to open the type of business you did. What void were you trying to fill, and how is the climate from your male counterparts, your competitors in the area, feeling?
Well, I was so naive about opening a business. There weren't very many women business owners, and so there was really no one to mentor or to give me advice or to help me through that process. The way I opened the business was really by luck. I got into the personnel business in Norman by working as a personnel consultant for 2 different firms. I loved the business because I was helping people with the second most important thing in their life after their family, and that is their career and being successful in their career. And I was good at it. I had an innate sense of what a person would be good doing. And I had an innate sense with the company that was looking for someone and how to put the right person in that company. And it was magical. And I loved it. Still do. So I kind of gravitated to helping women primarily with their career and their future. So I spent a lot of time advising them on how I thought they could take what they were doing and mold it into managerial spots. Most of them went to work as secretaries, file clerks, receptionists. And so my goal was to help them turn those careers into a management role. Or maybe even they go out and start their own business. So the companies I worked for went out of business, and I decided that I should take my big fortune, which was at the time about $600 to my name, and go start my own company. And it was very, very difficult. No banks would loan money to a woman, and I had no banking relationships. I had no vendor relationships. So purchasing, for example, advertising in the Oklahoman was tough because I had no money. And so I had to negotiate contracts up front, oftentimes asking if I could pay later rather than up front. And you know, in most instances, businesses here in Oklahoma would allow me to do that. So with that kind of support from the community, I was able to start a business with virtually no money and build it into a multi-million-dollar business. Today, it would be very, very difficult to do that. But in the 70s, it was very, very difficult to do that because I was going against the grain of most women not starting a business and not being their own boss. I had no experience and I had no real knowledge about how to build a business or how to manage people. So I really learned through trial and error. And there were a lot of errors.
I noticed, looking back at old issues of the Oklahoman, that you would normally appear in your ads, your picture would. Could you explain, I noticed several, personnel agencies try to do that. Why was that important to you?
I really wanted people to know that there was a real person running the firm, that I wasn't just a name. There are a lot of franchised personnel services, and at the time, most of the franchises were not the real owners. They were managers and operators. And so I wanted people to know that I was Oklahoma owned, born, bred, and raised in Oklahoma. And therefore, I wanted people to know that I really cared about their future and their career. And I also wanted them to know that I really wanted them to stay in Oklahoma and to remain a fabric of our state. I always hated losing people to another state because they couldn't find a job here. And when we had our oil and gas bust in the 80s, we lost so many it was really a brain drain. We lost so many great people. But most of my ads were done with me talking about the importance of us being an Oklahoma-grown company.
Did you find that a lot of people, both from the business end and from those looking for jobs, were receptive to that they would rather deal with a local than a franchise?
They did like, I believe, to deal with us because we were locally owned, that we were part of the fabric, we were part of the community. And I also think many times when they found out there really was a Terry Neese, and of course, the way I spell my name with the Y on the end of Terry, oftentimes they thought that was a man. And perhaps I didn't realize it, but at the time, perhaps that was good. I don't know. But when they found out that I was a woman, and they found out that there really was a Terry Neese that was the owner of Terry Neese Personnel Services, they were thrilled with that. And so I think it was a plus for us. We had a lot of adversities after starting Terry Neese Personnel Services. I purchased a building on Route 66. They tore up the highway out in front of me about 6 months after I purchased the building. We had no access into my building for 2.5 years. Real diversity. And then my building burned down about 6 months after the highway opened up, after not having any access into my building for 2.5 years. We had enormous adversities the first 5 years we were in business. But overcame all the odds. The odds were against us for a while, but we overcame.
You're just hitting every question I have already lined up, but that's good. That's good. Tell me about a key moment in your career that you consider one of your biggest highlights.
I think it was in 1986 when I was recruited by the National Association of Women Business Owners to be a delegate and run as a delegate to the 1986 White House Conference on Small Business. I had never been involved politically. I'd never been involved in policy. I had been in business at that point about 15 years, and policy and politics was not anything that I ever thought I would be involved in. It was of no interest to me at all. And when I ran as a delegate and got elected and attended the 1986 White House Conference in Washington, D.C., a whole new world opened up to me that I never knew was closed. And I saw Washington certainly as a power town. I saw it as a place to make a difference. And I truly caught the spirit of one person can make a difference. And we were at that time also in the oil and gas bust. And I wanted to come home from that conference and help small businesses thrive. And I came back on a mission to help Oklahoma turn our economy around, to help more men and women start their own businesses and build their businesses and grow. And I really dedicated myself over the last, 20 years to helping small businesses. I joined the Oklahoma State Chamber of Commerce in 1988, 2 years after the White House Conference on Small Business. I started and formed the very first small business department at the Oklahoma State Chamber of Commerce. And a thanks to Dick Rush, who recruited me to leave my company and join the state chamber and start that small business division. It was a critical point and a critical decision for Dick to develop a small business department. There had never been one. But the growth of small business was really what brought us out of the economic doldrums in the 80s. And we really turned the state around based on our help and our love of entrepreneurship and small business. So I coined the phrase, if you run a business and you're not involved in politics, then politics will run your business. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe every small business owner should be involved in policy and what our government, what our local, state, and federal government does, because it impacts their bottom line.
Do you think most small business owners realize that? I think, they're so focused on their business and making it successful. Do you think a lot of them see the bigger picture? Why should they, take that step and become involved local and nationally?
I think they don't see that. They don't see that public policy and politics really plays a role in their business life. And I understand that because I spent 15 years in that role myself. I didn't think it did either. I never thought about it. All I was doing was putting my blinders on and working and building my business. And you do have to do that in the early stages. But I believe that you have to throw in the politics and the public policy, because what the legislature does and what our state government does impacts our bottom line, whether it's health care, whether it's tax reform, whether it's federal government contracting or state government contracting, or perhaps it's the environment. Everything, every decision that's made and every piece of legislation that is passed is going to impact us in some way, from the stop sign down at the corner to the check that we write to the IRS. It all impacts us. And it's a huge process, but every single person can make a difference in their government if they will just get involved. I believe your government is only as effective as the input it receives from you. And I also believe our elected officials are our employees. And I think it's important when we give our employees performance reviews, so it's important that we give our elected officials performance reviews. And we can do that at the ballot box. And one vote can oftentimes make a big difference.
Now, in 1990, you made history as the first woman nominated by a major political party for lieutenant governor. How did that bid come about?
It was, again, back to small business. I really believed that the lieutenant governor's office could be a bully pulpit to help small business, and especially women and minority small business owners, build their businesses and take their businesses to the next level. So the lieutenant governor spot, in my opinion, was the best place to become involved in policy and to assist small business owners in Oklahoma. Now, should I have started at a much lower level, for example, a county commissioner or a city council role or something like that? You know, hindsight's 20/20, and that's probably what I should have done. But I'm a dreamer and I'm a visionary, and so I really felt the lieutenant governor spot was the right place for me to go. I'd been very good friends with Gladys Warren, who also ran for lieutenant governor, but didn't make the primary, was not the nominee. I was also good friends with Cleta Deathridge, and Cleta never became a nominee as well. They really were on the forefront of running for statewide office as a woman. I had no clue what I was getting myself into when I announced in 1990 that I wanted to seek the office of lieutenant governor. Becoming the first woman nominated for that role, I believe, led immediately to 1994, Mary Fallon winning the nomination and going on to winning the office of lieutenant governor, Brenda Renault becoming labor commissioner, Denise Bodie, Laura Boyd, Sandy Garrett. I mean, all of these women all of a sudden ran for office and were elected. So I felt like I was on the cusp of helping, although I was not elected, but became the first woman nominated for lieutenant governor. I felt like I gave the foundation for women then to step out there and announce for office statewide and win. And I'm thrilled with that. Would I have run my campaign differently? Yes. Lots of mistakes. Oh, I learned so many things, and so many things I did wrong. But I believe the things I did wrong perhaps helped other women later on down the line to go and win.
Do you think you would ever run for office again in any capacity?
Oh, I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't think so. I think I have bigger things. Not that being in office is not a big thing. It is. We all have somewhere to serve. And I think my role has been helping women, not just in Oklahoma, but around the world.
Well, getting to around the world, you co-founded a national bipartisan organization called Women Impacting Public Policy. Why did you feel forming this public policy group was important?
I had served as president, national president of the National Association of Women Business Owners. So I had traveled the country, almost all 50 states, speaking and meeting and talking with women business owners. And they really did not have a voice in our nation's capital. And I was concerned about that. I spent a great deal of time in Washington working with our elected officials on small business issues from about 1986 to 2000. And in 2000, I thought we had turned the corner because I'd spent so much time on the Hill and I was the only person there advocating for women business owners. So I believe that all women and women's business associations needed to come together with one voice and impact policy that affected our businesses and our bottom line. So forming Women Impacting Public Policy, I brought about 30 women's business associations to the table and said, we need to all join hands and we need to speak with one voice. We will never agree on every issue. I don't agree with my husband on every issue, and we'll never agree on every issue. But we can come together on some economic issues that will help us be more self-sufficient and help women who want to start and grow a business to do that if we all come together. So fortunately, everyone around that table, many who didn't like each other very much and often had arguments on different topics, agreed to come together and join hands and be one voice around economic issues. And this is what formed Women Impacting Public Policy. We now have over 600,000 members across the country, and we have 46 women's business associations that are under our umbrella. And we make sure that their voices are heard through a survey that we do every year. And we take their issues and their voice to our nation's capital every day.
And are you starting to see a serious impact? Are people, legislators, starting to say, whoa, these women mean business here?
We do. Many of the legislators, many senators and House members that I could name for you, for example, Chairman of Small Business Don Manzullo, House Committee on Small Business Senator Bond, Senator Kerry, they have said to me, we will not author any legislation that impacts women business owners until we talk to you first. You know, we want to make sure the legislation is what you want. If it isn't what you want, we want to sit down and talk with you about changes that will make it right. They know that we mean business. They know that women vote often and in more elections than their male counterparts. And so they want to make sure we have a seat at the table to give them input on legislation. And then when they run for office, they want to make sure that there's a seat at their table in their campaigns, so that we give them advice about what women in their district or women in their state are wanting and need in order to build their business or in order to feed their family.
It's 2007 right now. What are some of the big issues that women business owners are really trying to advocate for?
Women business owners really want to take care of their employees. I mean, we're natural nurturers. We want to provide health insurance and a good benefit package to them. We want to be able to provide, as a small business, a Fortune 500 package of business, of benefits to our employees. We can't do that. And so we need health care reform that can help us help our employees and help us take care of our employees. And not only that, but help retain our employees. How can we provide the maximum benefits for them when Fortune 500 companies are way over our head in terms of providing benefits? So retention's important, and helping take care of them and their families is very important to us. There's also an access to capital issue still. It's not anywhere near like it was in the 70s, but it's important that women business owners have access to capital in banks, angel investors, and have access to angel investors, venture capital. I mean, all of these things are critical to women business owners that are especially in the missing middle, what we're calling the missing middle women business owners. These are women who are now at $1 million in revenue, and they're trying to take their business to $5 million in revenues annually, or $10 million in annual revenues. And so the access to capital is really critical. And then the third thing is, many women business owners want to do business with their state government and with the federal government. You know, the federal government purchases over $300 billion of products and services from the private sector. So women business owners need to know, how do I get in that game? How do I perhaps match up and be a subcontractor with a prime contractor? Or how do I get to know how all of this works? It's complicated. It's doing business with the government, which is double complicated. So we want to make sure that women are on the playing field and they're able to acquire multi-million-dollar contracts with the state government and the federal government. And so WHIP is making sure that many of these women have access to the knowledge they need to make that happen.
Sounds like a very good clearinghouse of information.
Excellent clearinghouse, it is. Anytime our members have a problem with the IRS or a problem with any government agency, we generally have a contact somewhere in those agencies where we can be helpful to our member, whatever their problem is. And I think that's a huge service to women business owners that we're providing.
In September of 2000, Fortune magazine included you on the Power 30 list of the most influential small business persons in Washington, D.C. Can you just touch upon that for me? How did that make you feel?
I was overwhelmed. I was just doing my work. And, I've often said that do something that you love to do. And if you do it so well, and you love it so much, you do it for free. But you do it so well, you get very well paid. And I kept thinking, how did I get there? And I got there because I'm passionate about what I do. And I'm passionate about making sure that women understand how politics plays a role in their life. And I'm passionate that they understand and realize that they can make a difference in legislation and they can make a difference at the polls. And so to be recognized by people around the country that we had built the Women Impacting Public Policy organization to be the most respected women's business association in the country, and that my peers and also Congress had a say in who are the most important people advocating on Capitol Hill, and they selected me, I was overwhelmed.
And one more, going back into politics, it just seems to be this constant evolution. In 2005, you were nominated by President Bush to become the director of the U.S. Mint. Upon learning the news, how did you feel?
Oh my gosh, I cried. Well, first of all, I thought, the United States Mint? The United States Mint? How does that correlate with small business and helping women business owners? And so it took some time to get used to that. And I had really mixed emotions. I had spent a lot of time in Washington, but I'd never lived there. I could always come home. And this is really home. This is me. Oklahoma is me. I am Oklahoma. And so when we got through all the paperwork, oh my goodness, it's phenomenal what you have to go through for a Senate confirmation. Just phenomenal. So knowing that the president had the confidence and the trust in me that I could be director of the Mint and run the mints was gratifying. And was, I think, a tribute to the work and the hard work that I've done over the years. So I was appreciative of his respect and his appreciation of my integrity, especially at the Mint. But then when push came to shove, I had just moved my mother here. I couldn't leave her. And my husband had some health issues, and I just thought, I can go do this another time. There's another time, another place. And so I decided to stay in Oklahoma. Were there distractions? Were there people who didn't want me to be at the Mint? There's always, anytime you're put up for a nomination like this. It's interesting at the people who come out of the woodwork that want to try to dive bomb your confirmation. That actually happened after I had withdrawn my nomination. They didn't know I had withdrawn my nomination, but it actually happened. But interestingly enough, it's a great thing that I ended up staying here. My mom's 85 years old. I've spent a lot of time with her. She's had some serious health problems over the last couple of years. So it was a really good thing that I stayed here. And then I ended up starting the Women Impacting Public Policy Institute and working with Afghan women. And so, God usually puts you where you're supposed to be.
Now, I heard you just returned from Afghanistan. What are the types of things you're trying to do over there?
Last year, I formed the Women Impacting Public Policy Institute, and it is essentially economic empowerment of women worldwide. I was asked by the White House and the State Department to help women business owners in Afghanistan. And initially, I thought, why would I want to do that? And I certainly don't want to go there for any period of time. But then I started thinking about the fact that Afghanistan's constitution calls for 25% of their lower parliament to be women. We don't even have that here in the United States. And 14% of our Senate, United States Senate, are women. Only 14%. Afghanistan has 25% in their constitution. And so I thought, these women need, if I could help educate them on entrepreneurship and freedom and democracy, and they go back in turn and start a business and grow a business and or run for office and run for parliament, it's a small step towards peace through business. So I developed the Peace Through Business program, and we've just brought 12 women business owners from Afghanistan to the United States. And they are obtaining a mini MBA program at Northwood University, which is headquartered in Midland, Michigan. So they're 5 weeks into this program. We're also having them spend a week with women business owners here and live with a woman business owner and follow her in her family life and in her business, shadow her in her business. So we're matching them up, construction owner, a ball production company, a tailoring company, a woman who has started a women's shopping mall in Afghanistan. We're bringing 4 of these women to Oklahoma in September of this year to network and mentor and shadow with women business owners here in Oklahoma. When they go back to Afghanistan, our agreement is that they will plug into economic development offices across the country of Afghanistan and share their knowledge that they've learned here in a train-the-trainer scenario. So we are thrilled with the opportunity to help these women and for them to learn about democracy and about building their business. Some of these women owned a business before the Taliban took control. They had to close their business. They could not walk outside their home without being on the arm of a man. They could no longer go to school. Girls were completely banned from going to school. Women were banned from going to college or any of the universities in Afghanistan. That has now been eradicated, and they're able to go to school. They're able to open their own businesses and build their own businesses. And I think it's incumbent upon us as women here in the United States to reach out to our sisters around the world and help them make sure that they are self-sufficient and if they are in fact in Parliament, perhaps they will take this peace through business message with them to Parliament and help us around the world to be more peaceful.
Sounds like a lot of good stuff you're doing.
I think it is good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Really making a difference around the world.
Definitely.
Around the world.
And you started out wanting to make a difference in women's lives, and you still continue to do that to this day on a global scale. It's really just amazing. Turning to the Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame, when you were notified that you were going to be inducted, what was going through your mind at that time?
I will never forget where I was the day I got the call, I cried after I got off the phone. I thought, a little girl from Cookie Town, Oklahoma, was going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I was overwhelmed with emotion, as I am now. It's really incredible to be honored by your peers, by fellow Oklahomans, and to have the opportunity to pass your knowledge on to others. And I'm hopeful in some way that I will always be able to do that. I'm appreciative of the women who had the foresight to set up and establish an Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame. Thank God there were women who were thinking about the legacy that women were leaving in this state. They are the real heroes. And so I'm grateful to them for their vision and for their forethought and the impact that these women who established the Hall of Fame, the impact that they've had on Oklahoma.
Do you remember who presented you at the ceremony?
Yes. Don Kane, who is the president of AT&T here in Oklahoma. Don and I became acquainted in Washington, D.C., and I worked with him extensively on telecom legislation, and we became very good friends. And interestingly enough, I traveled abroad and was actually in Greece, and when I came home, started thumbing through some old Oklahoma newspapers. I've been gone 2 weeks, and he was on the front page that he was the new president of AT&T Oklahoma, and I didn't even know he'd moved here. So I was thrilled that Don had come to Oklahoma to be a part of our leadership here in the state. It just so happened that he knew a lot about my public policy background and what I had done in Washington and across the country. And so for Don to present me at the Hall of Fame was a real honor, and I really appreciate him and what he's doing here in Oklahoma as well.
Did you have a lot of supporters in attendance, your family?
I did. I had a lot of supporters. I had people who drove in from various parts of the state. Some people I hadn't seen in a long, long time. Employees that have worked for me years ago. And so it was a real blessing just to see people that I haven't seen for years, and to have an experience to spend a little bit of time with them.
All of the women in the Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame are just so amazing. How do you feel now that you're among that group and people look at you now as a role model?
Well, I think there are a lot of women in the Hall of Fame that they should look at as a role model rather than myself. I mean, I feel very blessed to just have a seat at that table. There are so many women in the Hall of Fame that I would love to spend time with, that I look up to, that have formed their life here in Oklahoma and made so many changes in this state that have impacted so many people. And so just to be in their presence, and maybe we should develop some kind of a role where we all get together every now and then and we're able to network with each other and spend a little bit of time with each other, because there's a phenomenal group of women that's in this Hall of Fame, and I'm blessed to just be in their presence.
Can you tell me a little something about the people you would like to thank that played an important role in your life?
Well, certainly my family. Without them, there's just no way I would be where I am. Ray Ackerman, who I usually call Mr. Oklahoma City, Ray Ackerman of Ackerman McQueen was a real role model for me growing my company. He's a dynamic leader. He's a visionary. He always encouraged me to dream big, and I appreciated that and respected that so much. Gladys Warren, who was a wonderful political mentor, and I believe a great person, is someone that I will always have a deep appreciation for. It's the light's blinking.
You can finish up here.
Okay. And then, I mean, there are literally hundreds of leaders across the country that have played a role in helping me reach the pinnacles of success, and I appreciate them more than words could say.
If you could give any piece of advice to fellow Oklahomans, what would you tell them?
Oh my. I would say to follow your passion, to dream and dream big, to love the land, and be to be a good spirit for Oklahoma, and to be a good voice and a good advocate for Oklahoma. You know, I've traveled so much, and so many people have said to me that they thought Oklahoma was a third world country. And it makes me so angry. And so I think all of us need to be ambassadors for this great state. I mean, there is nowhere on earth that is better to live than right here in Oklahoma. I mean, we are so blessed to live in this state. And we need to really appreciate it and take care of it.
What would be your advice to women that plan to follow in your footsteps?
Oh my gosh, you'd be crazy. Don't do it. You know, I think for anyone that wants to help people, there's so many opportunities out there for someone who is passionate about helping others. You know, American Cancer Society, the Heart Association. I mean, there's just so many things. There are so many needs, and so there's so many things. But I would always say to determine what your passion is. And whatever your passion is, if you follow that passion, you'll be successful. I firmly believe that.
In your spare time, I see that you're a licensed pilot. How did you become interested in flying?
That's another thing I never thought I would do. My husband's a pilot and has been a pilot for a number of years. And so after I started flying with him, I thought, I kept hearing all these stories about how maybe a wife or a significant other was with a pilot and he had a heart attack or something happened and this person wasn't able to land the plane. And so I thought, I should figure out how to fly this airplane in case anything ever happens to him. And so I started ground school, went to ground school, and I'll have to be honest with you, about the second or third night of ground school, I decided I couldn't do this. I decided I wasn't smart enough to get through ground school, and I went home and told my husband, I said, I can't finish this. I can't do the weather stuff. I'm not a mechanic. Just the whole thing around doing the flight check on the airplane and all that, I just don't think I can do it. Well, bottom line is I ended up doing it, and then ended up getting my license. And then once I got my license, I was the one who always wanted to fly the airplane, and he never could get the airplane back. So it was really just to make sure that I could land the plane in case anything ever happened. But I love it. I love the feeling of being up there alone and being a free spirit. It's just really a phenomenal feeling.
What's the coolest place you've ever flown to?
I guess it would be flying to Gulf Shores, Alabama, which is just outside Pensacola, Florida. We have a place there, and so it's an interesting flight in that part of the world. There's a lot of fog, there's a lot of haze, and so you really have to be on top of your game going in to that part of the world. And flying over water, flying over Mobile Bay. I mean, all of those are touchy little things, but every time you go up in an airplane, you really take your life in your own hands. But I think when you go out and get in the car, perhaps you're taking your life in your own hands. Maybe when you walk across the street, you're taking your life in your own hands. So people who say, well, I just don't know, I don't think planes are safe, and they scare me.
Do you fly often?
I used to fly a lot. Don't fly as much as I used to. But used to fly a lot, and would fly just about everywhere we went. And there's I love the general aviation people in that community. We're all kindred spirits, and we really enjoy what we're doing. I was a part of the 99s, which is Amelia Earhart's organization that she established, and there's a great 99 chapter here in Oklahoma City, and we would all get together oftentimes on Saturday morning and fly to a small runway somewhere, and we'd paint the numbers. Our job was to help the airport out, and there'd be 6 or 7 of us that would fly in and land and paint the numbers at the end of the runway. And just a lot of great camaraderie and terrific women in the 99s who celebrated Amelia Earhart for what she did and for her passion, and her record-breaking flights, and it's just truly a great organization to be a part of, and I'm really proud to be a pilot.
What is next on the agenda for Terry Neese? What do you think you'll be doing in the next few years?
God only knows, but I think I will be continuing to help women around the world. I think I will get deeper into that. This year is really just a test of, can we really be helpful to women in Afghanistan, and can we provide follow-up to them next year when they go back home and continue to build their businesses. I see us also helping women in India, China, Mexico, South Africa, and women business owners here in the United States who are trying to grow their companies. Women business owners have come a long way over the last 35 years. Long way. We still have a long way to go. Many women business owners are highly qualified to sit on Fortune 500 boards of directors, and we're not there. We need to be out advocating for that. Women business owners that are trying to take their business to the next level need women business owner mentors who are already at that next level, that will walk back down the ladder and work with their other fellow women business owners and help pull them up that other ladder, the rest of that ladder. So we need to be helping women here, but we need to be helping women around the globe. And I also believe we need to elect more and more women to office, not just because they're a woman, but elect women that are passionate about your views and that you believe will represent you well, and that you are comfortable with them representing you well in office. Let me digress and say, when I ran for lieutenant governor in 1990, we had women in the state, when I would hand them my campaign literature, they wouldn't take it from me. And they would say to me, women are not supposed to run for office. That was in 1990. So we need to help women understand that women bring a different perspective to the table. They bring a different voice to the table. They bring different color to the table. And so it's important that we have a table that looks like America. And women make up 52% of the electorate. So having only 14% in the United States Senate is unconscionable. And we can find good, qualified women to be in these offices, not just because they're a woman, but because they're qualified. So I see myself continuing to voice those opinions and continuing to help women around the world.
When history is written about you, what would you like for it to say?
Oh, she was a crazy woman from Cookie Town who didn't know how to stop. She worked 24/7. She was passionate about women and passionate about making sure that women had a seat at the table and that women were this and women were that, and oh, it's this women thing. I'm hopeful that they'll say that that I did help women a lot, that I helped them in their careers initially, that I found jobs for thousands of women who then progressed up the ladder, and then I helped women start businesses, be self-sufficient, have freedom, have independence, not only here in the United States and here in Oklahoma, but around the globe. And I think that's a pretty good history.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad way to be remembered.
I think it's a good way to be remembered.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you'd like to add that we have not spoken about today? I can't think of anything. Okay. Well, we definitely appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to meet with us. It's been a pleasure interviewing you.
It's been a pleasure to talk with you and to kind of go back through life. The problem about going back through life is you get very emotional about what happened to you when you were growing up, things that you haven't thought about for a long time. So it's been a good review for me, and I appreciate you, appreciate the Hall of Fame, appreciate the women who are there, and I thank you for the opportunity.